What's going on, Falcon fan? This is what we're gonna do. Coming back at you with another video. So today we're gonna do an update of the Falcons defensive coordinator search. The Atlanta Falcons have interviewed quite a few guys. We're gonna go down and break down those guys. I'm thinking they're getting close to the end of going through their search, identifying who they want. They've really been thorough in this process, which is a really good thing because you want to make sure you get it right moving into your second year as a head coach, especially Raheem Morris doing this second time being a head coach. So you want to do everything right. So being thorough in this process is really important for these guys, because I think this year he has to be able to do something um, with this team, or he could be looking at his second time actually being fired as a head coach. So we're definitely going to talk about that. Then we're going to look at our D line in review for 2024 and see what's ahead for the Atlanta Falcons going into 2025 according to their D line. Once again, I think when you think about the defense in its entirety, I already talked about the secondary. I talked about our linebacker core. I think it's important to understand that whoever the defensive coordinator is going to be, and his philosophies with Raheem Morris, if they plan on doing a whole scheme shift and things like that, it's going to be important. Depends on who's going to be on this roster. So, guys, with that being said, if you have not already, go ahead and please subscribe to the channel. Please hit the notification bell so you know I drop another video. Please hit the like button so I know you guys are here to talk about. Then please share my video throughout the YouTube universe so more people can come and hear me talk about. That's right, these Atlanta Falcons. So let's get right into the defensive search, DC search for our Atlanta Falcons. And let's go down the list. It's no order in which they been interviewed and things like that. I don't think that matters. I think it's availability when they can actually get the guys and get their resume and look and see if they're a good fit for the Atlanta Falcons. And shout out to the Atlanta Falcons .com to be able to keep us updated with the tracker, who's been interviewed and things like that. So I want to shout out those guys. But going down the list, the first guy we're going to talk about is Steve Wilks, a guy who's has a really extensive resume from the defense side of the ball. His last stint as a defensive coordinator is definitely with the San Francisco 49ers when they actually went to the Super Bowl. You can tell in that situation, though, especially if you look at the Super Bowl game, and they couldn't stop Patrick Mahomes. So him and Kyle Shanahan kind of didn't mesh as well. But getting guys to the Super Bowl, and a lot of people say, well, they had the talent. Well, you got to be able to do something with the talent you got. And he was able to actually do that, get those guys to the Super Bowl. So that's his last stint, as a defensive coordinator with the San Francisco 49ers. You look, he's with the Carolina Panthers for a while. Of course, we know he was the interim coach back here after Matt Rule got let go. And a lot of people thought that he should have got an opportunity to be the head coach after that season because the way he was able to turn that team around and had those guys actually playing really good for him. So, he was with the Carolina Panthers from 2012, 2017, which is a long time, right? So he's familiar with this division as well. So, just bringing him in, another guy that came to the training camp during the 2024 season, to take a look. I think he was there for a couple of days. So, he had to have some kind of relationship with the Atlanta Falcons, to be there a couple of days with the coaching staff, Terry Fontenot, a lot of people think this probably is going to be the hire. What's going on, Wallace? A lot of people think this probably is going to be the hire, Steve Wilks. They finally got an interview in. So, guy who's been coaching for a long time. I think he has a extensive resume, good background, being a good football coach. It's going to be interesting to see. A lot of people think this is going to be the guy. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll definitely find out. I think it's going to be good. Once he get hired, we'll look into his scheme a little bit more and see it kind of mesh what Raheem Morris like to do. We know Raheem background. Of course, he started, down with the Tampa 2 down there. Then he worked with Dan Quinn, and then he kind of did little, he got to the Rams, did something a little different, right? On some of the things you got to do. I think when you comes to defense, and I think when you're thinking about defensive coordinators, um, of course they got their bread and butter, their scheme, what they like to run. But you need the players to run a specific scheme. So you look at guys like Dick Fangio and guys like Dean Pease, Dick LeBeau, those 3-4 guys. They have to have those great outside linebackers to be able to do that. Good safeties and things like that to come down and run fits and things like that. And you need a good nose tackle to be in to be in the middle of that 3-4 scheme if you want to be able to run it like you. But you got to have great outside linebacker play. And I don't think the Atlanta Falcons had that. So the ideal of being a 3-4, I don't think it suited this team in the first place. So but it's going to be interesting to see what Steve Wilks brings to the table if he's the guy. But that's the first coaching guy we're going to talk about. Wallace says, I've been on Steve Wilks' train since they let him go, let Jimmy Lake go. Yes, and I think this might be the guy, but we're not 100% sure. A lot of people feel that way. So, and if it's the guy, I'm 100% behind it as well. So we'll definitely get to see. I think we might hear something next week. Looking at how many people they have already interviewed. So that's Steve Wilks. Definitely, guys, let me know what you think about him. Do you think he should be the Atlanta Falcons' next defensive coordinator? Next guy on the list, a guy that came out of nowhere, but you like I said, the coaching staff, and Atlanta Falcons are being real thorough with their search. So they're not just getting the first guy that they hire and like. They're actually doing their due diligence, doing their homework, making sure that before they decide that who's going to be the next DC, they looked at everybody. The next guy is Grady Brown. He's the secondary coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's been with those guys for 3 years. Now this guy has never been a defensive coordinator in the league, but it'd be interesting to see what his philosophy would be. You know how much respect that Raheem Morris had for Mike Tomlin, so I'm pretty sure Mike Tomlin spoke really highly of Grady Brown to garner him this opportunity to be the defensive coordinator. Um, we'll just have to see how it works. I know you don't want another first time DC like he just had. So, but I like the fact that they're going in and looking at everybody. Now, this guy could come in and be one of the best defensive coordinators, that Atlanta Falcons have ever had. So I'm not cutting him short because he has never been. He might have blown the Atlanta Falcons away with what his ideal of how he would run a defense. Like a lot of times, people just need opportunities. Grady Brown might just need that, but like I said, the relationship that Raheem Morris have with Mike Tomlin, giving this guy opportunity, and he might be a real brilliant defensive mind that comes in and switch things up. Like I said, he was coaching the secondary. We already got Gary Drake, Jerry Gray there, so I don't know. I mean, but like I said, I love the fact that they're just interviewing everybody. This is a guy that came out of nowhere. So, do I think Grady Brown is going to be the next DC? Not 100% sure. And if he was to be the DC, I think it would surprise pretty much everybody because, like I said, nobody had a guy like Grady Brown on the radar. So let's see if Grady Brown be the next guy. So Steve Wilks, Grady Brown. The next guy is Derek Ansley, another guy that nobody was actually talking about, and he was the passing game coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, right? So if you're looking at some relationships here, of course, Matt LaFleur was with the head coach for the Los Angeles Rams, right? That relationship there. He got a relationship with Raheem Morris as well. Remember all those guys, Matt LaFleur, um, the head coach for the Rams, um, the head coach for the Miami Dolphins. All those guys was in Washington back in the day, right? Some of those guys were actually on the Atlanta Falcons under Dan Quinn as well, which is interesting. But another relationship. So of course Raheem probably got a relationship with Matt LaFleur, right? Another guy that probably somebody that he, spoke highly of, the one to come in and get opportunity. Passing game coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. Has not been a defensive coordinator as well. So this would be in my opinion, another Jimmy Lake sort of hiring, right? Bringing in a guy who's never been a defensive coordinator. I'm not sure it'd be smart for Raheem Morris to bring in another guy being a first time DC, right? And that goes for a Grady Brown and a Derek Ansley, right? So both of these guys, I like the fact they're thinking outside the box and doing their due diligence, but at the same time, in my opinion, um, I wouldn't suggest Raheem Morris go down to a brand new DC. That just would not be ideal for me. So we'll just have to see how these two guys, pan out in the Grady Brown and in the Derrick Hensley. But the idea that they're actually getting opportunities to even interview for DCs is good for their career. Um, and then a couple of years from now, you might hear their name being a DC. But for the Atlanta Falcons, I don't think it would be a smart goal for Raheem Morris to go down their road having a new DC, first time DC again. It just wouldn't be smart in my opinion. The next guy is Lou Anarumo. We know about him. We talked about Lou Anarumo, on previous podcasts that I have done. Of course, guy who was just the defensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, when you look at a guy like Lou, right, and everybody's gonna go to his last stint and how did that turn out for him? And it was bad. Let's just be honest with you. The Cincinnati Bengals defense did not do Lou Anarumo any favors on his resume, especially his last season, 2024. So in you have to update your resume. That's what it looks like. So if you want to go to the last thing that he has on tape, you're going to go back and look at that Cincinnati Bengals defense from 2024, and you'd be like, why would anybody want to hire this guy again? But you have to look at the entire resume, and you have to understand the circumstances that may be the reason why he couldn't get his defense playing. I think because of personnel, right? I think they lost a lot of guys due to free agency. You look at the offensive side of the ball and look like that's where a lot of the money is going. Besides Hendricks, do they even have an all pro on the defensive side of the ball? So you have to look at things like that and try to figure out why, it went from being in the Super Bowl a couple years ago, as a defensive coordinator to, being one of the worst defenses, um, of all time, especially with the way the Cincinnati Bengals offense was playing. So looking at his last stint, you have to look past that and you look at Coach Anarumo, um, time with the Bengals from 2019 to 2024. Full-time defensive coordinator. Um, he also with the Miami Dolphins in 2012, 2017. That's when he got his start as a defensive coach. So he been in the lead a minute. Um, he had the title of defensive back coach with the New York Giants as well in 2018. So that gives you his coaching background on the defense side of the ball. We know he does have a connection with a guy like Jesse Bates. That would not be the reason they would bring him in. He would have to explain, looking at the Atlanta Falcons current roster, and how he can make this team be better than what they were last year. That's what we have to sell to the Atlanta Falcons organization, and kind of explain what happened in 2024. That's what I would want to hear. What happened in 2024 to be, to having so much um, change and being a success to what it was last year. So, but I wouldn't mind having a guy like this because I think he's have a different philosophy than Raheem Morris. And I'm gonna go on record of saying that I think Raheem Morris need to do something different, need to switch it up a little bit. I understand his philosophy, how he want to play, a lot of zone and things like that. Zone is good. You play zone at certain times, but I think bringing in that aggressive defensive coach is would be my protect what I would like. So that's where I'm going with it. Wallace says, but whoever they bring in need to add more good talent to make their scheme work. Be without better talent on the roster, it won't matter. And that's that. Like I said, that's what, in my opinion, what hurt Lou Anarumo his stint in Cincinnati. Just didn't have the talent, man. No matter how good you are as a play caller, if you don't have the players to execute anything that you're calling, not just a scheme, right? Because I know a lot of people get wrapped up around scheme. And I got to run my scheme. Well, if your players can't run that scheme, you got to put your players in the best position to be successful, right? That's what you got to do. But if you ain't got players, it don't matter what scheme you put them in, they can't get the job done. You're probably not going to be successful. So I agree with you 100%. You got to bring in more talent. It just got to happen, which is going to be really, really tough for the Atlanta Falcons this year because of the cap situation. Let's see. Well, this also says I don't know about Lou because he run that bend on break defense also that we're used to running. And if that's the case, I agree with you. If he's a zone guy and wants to, let him get down the field and stop him on third down, stop him in the red zone, I agree. I don't want that. Like I want to be aggressive. I want to attack, 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 attack. That just I want to see that in Atlanta. And I don't know if we've seen that from one of our defensive coordinators, you know, ever maybe. I think Ron Nielsen had that kind of philosophy a little bit, but if you go back to Dan Quinn, he's got the bend don't break. You know, I hate that philosophy as well. So I want to see some change. To just be honest with you. So good point. Last but not, you said I see that they have completed an interview with Matt Everflus. Yep, we're going to talk about him in just a minute. We talk about Matt Everflus, who's another guy. Um, So, guys, that's Lou on Ronald. Next guy is Jeff Ulbrich, and I know we all are familiar with him, right? He was with the Atlanta Falcons during the Dan Quinn era. He actually was the defensive coordinator once Raheem Morris became the interim coach for Atlanta Falcons in the season Dan Quinn was actually let go. So, in sense you think about it, it's almost like running back that interim period that the Atlanta Falcons had, once Dan Quinn got fired, because you'll put a guy like Jeff Ulbrich as the DC, and then you have Raheem Morris as the head coach, even though he was the interim head coach, and it's like you're running back that same group right there. I know you got other coaches on the staff, but to me it seemed like it's the same old thing. And if Raheem Morris is comfortable with that, I guess it'll be cool, but it wouldn't be something I would want to do. I mean, just be honest with you. I think you need to switch it up. I like the being comfort, being your comfort zone, and being able to have a relationship with your coach and being able to trust and stuff like that. So I'm not trying to say that's not important, because I think it is. All right, you got to be able to have a good relationship with your coaching staff, being able to trust those guys, being able to give them autonomy to be able to do the things they need to do. So having a good relationship would be it's what you want to have. But Jeff Ulbrich, I think it's like just like the same was from the same old things. I'm not 100% sure. Now Jeff Ulbrich was on the Robert Saleh, um, which was a good defensive coordinator as well. So maybe he have changed his philosophy of some of the things that he want to do. So a guy like Jeff Ulbrich could be, different from Raheem Morris. And if you look at things he was able to do, with the New York Jets, I know a lot of people saying, well, it was really Robert Saleh, not Jeff Ulbrich with their defenses, but those defenses in New York was really, really good, right? To the point where the Jets, pretty much went all out to bring a quarterback in, because they felt like that's all they needed, because their defense was set, right? So that's how good the defense really played. So that's what you got. That's what you got to look at. Look at his resume and look at how good the New York defense was, and see can he translate that to the Atlanta Falcons. Now it goes back to what Waller was saying. You need the players to be able to run anything. He had great players in New York, to be able to do the Mosley with the 5-time All Pro, right? You got guys like that. You got Sauce Gardner on the outside, being one of a shutdown corner, but you had great defensive linemen in the middle. So he had good players in New York, right? So you have to have the talent. I do agree with that. But if you look at those defenses in New York, they was really, really good. in the top 10 every year. And let's be honest, the Atlanta Falcons, you know, let's just go to the Matt Ryan era. When Atlanta Falcons, Matt Ryan, 14 seasons, the Atlanta Falcons had a top 10 defense once. Once in the 14 years of the Matt Ryan era, right? Let's be honest, guys. We got to fix the defense. It's got to be better, right? Especially you look at the talent on the offense side of the ball. They had top 12, top 15 defense. The Atlanta Falcons could be really, really special. So, you take a guy like Jeff Obrook, if he can translate that into, to what the Atlanta Falcons do, let's do it, right? Let's do it. But it could be the same old, right? Something that you're familiar with, and you like, I just like to stick to what I know. And if you want to go down that road because he feel comfortable, it could be a gamble. So, but Jeff Obert is definitely a guy to put on your radar because of the relationship and because of the familiarity. And be honest with you, his resume, looking at what that Jets defense was able to do, was impressive. So I wouldn't be shocked. I would not be shocked if they would sign Jeff Obrecht. What's up, Jay Black? What's the name says? Steve Wilkes, I like the Matt Eberflus interview too. View all options, 100%, 100%. But I'm glad they're taking their time interviewing the candidates they have on their list before they make a decision they want. 100%. They need to be thorough. They need to make sure, because when you make the decision, I think this is for both the general manager and the head coach. They need to get something done. And I like the fact, if you look and listen to both of the interviews, they're not, going out talking about some positive this, positive that. They was like, look, man, we tired of talking. We got to put some results out there. And that's the truth, right? So they need to get this right. Terry T said he like Wilkes. I mean, like Winks. We're gonna talk about Wink Martindale in a minute, because definitely Amara's gonna learn nothing from McVay. I don't know, man. We'll see. Sean McVay is just man. I for some reason he had those guys ready to play every year. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. I wouldn't want Obert back as our DC. We've seen how they went when they bring him back as a position coach. Yeah, could bring back as a linebacker coach. That's a great point. It's a great point. But that's Jeff Ulbrich, ladies and gentlemen. The next guy is Don Wink Martindale, right? Guy that this will probably be one of my one or two guys right now on the radar. Definitely Wink Martindale, and for one reason and one reason only, because the kind of defense that he would like to deploy is what I want, man. This, to be honest with you guys, aggressive after the quarterback, risk of the biscuit, right? That's what I'm talking about, man. I just want to go all out, man. You live and die, by playing it safe, and like I said, going into the zone and things like that. Or you can go all out and say, look, man, we're going to just go out, and we're not going to give you time to sit back and pick us apart. We're going to make you think fast. We're going to make you react. And if you can beat us that way, by all means. That's what I like about, what Wink Martindale bring to the table. If you look at what he had, those Baltimore Ravens teams, even if you look at, his current stint right now as a defense coordinator for the Michigan Wolverines, you go look at what they was able to do to the Ohio State, in the game that they beat those guys. They hold those guys well. Look what they was able to do to Alabama. And at the end of the day, it does require talent. You have to have talent. But, Wink was with the New York Giants in 22-23. That stint didn't last long at all as a DC, the first year. But the Giants organization is, you take what you want to take with that about, how that team is ran. Then, like I said, from 2012 to 21, he was with the Baltimore Ravens. So and then from 2009, 2010, he's with the Denver Broncos. 2004 to 2008, he was with the Oakland Raiders. So Wink Martindale has over 20 something years of experience in NFL as a decent defensive mind, right? You know, going to be the linebacker coach, going to being the DC, and then of course his previous stint his current stint right now with the Michigan Wolverines, right? Um, you have to have the personnel, but for me, he would be one of the guys top of my list because of um, I love the way the AFC North plays defense, and aside from the Bengals, right? What we've seen in 2024, but you love the way the Steelers play, you love the way the Ravens play, you love the way the Browns play. They're on the defensive side of the ball, and I just love that division. Where they hard nose, where they go out and they smack people in the mouth, and we can bring that kind of mentality to the NFC South. You know, a guy like Wink Martindale would be top of my list, right? Um, Either him or right now, in my opinion, if I'm gonna go, it'd be him or Steve Wilkes. So yes, 100%, I would like to see that. Terry T said Kirk Cousins on ABC, ESPN covering the game. Kirk might retire. Go and retire. Go and retire. At this point, man, you know, with Kirk Cousins on the roster, I tell you this much: we're not releasing him. If they release him, that would not be the right decision. Just gonna say it like that. It would not be the right decision because you're losing for nothing. I think he's professional enough to be a backup, and if no team want to trade for him, yes, you have to give him 10 more million guaranteed by the new league year. But that's already sunk cost. You already had factored in into the salary cap situation anyway for 2 years, so it's already was factored in. It's like not this. It's not like a surprise that when you sign Kirk Cousins and then you also pick Michael Penix, that you wasn't going to have both of these guys on the roster, right? The situation have changed definitely 100%, but at the same time, when they signed Kirk Cousins and then they picked Michael Penix, they knew that this situation, with the salary cap would be the same. Either Michael Penix was starting or not. The cap situation have not changed since when they decided to sign him, and they picked Michael Penix in the raid. So you have to get something out of this thing. If you don't, I think it'd be a failure on the Atlanta Falcons part. So either they trade him or he's on the roster. I don't think they should cut him at all. And if he retires, he retires. Let's see here. He said, but with Wink, we need another cornerback opposite AJ Terrell because he likes to leave them on the island by themselves so they can put pressure on the quarterback. Yes, I agree. We 100% need the we 100% need the freaking another cornerback. We need players, not just cornerback. I think we need a linebacker. I think we need a pass rusher. So, it's going to be the Falcons definitely is going to have to get, creative with their salary cap this year because they got to add players. I don't think they could not add players, especially with the draft situation we have, not having that much draft capital. They got to be creative with the salary cap, right? And they might have to get honest about some players on the rosters. We're going to talk about the defensive line in just a minute, and I don't want to have to say it, but they might have to let some guys go that we might never thought was going to be let go. So that's the way you look at it. Appreciate it for the $5 super chat, man. Kurt will never be a starter in Atlanta with Penix, but as a quality backup, is a serious pin. Yeah, and then that's what I mean. That's what I mean. He's not starting anymore, and if he's okay with that in his mind, don't give him away from that. I'm just saying, don't release him, man. If you can trade him and get some kind of draft capital, let's do that. But because the money is already there, it's not like it's not like, if he's here, you got to pay him more. No, you already paid him. You already gave him guaranteed money. He's going to get it. So just eat it, man. A lot of these people like he's not going to be on the roster. Why not? They factored in that situation when they signed him, and then they picked Michael Penix. They had already factored in they're going to have two quarterbacks on the roster. Like, it's not like a surprise. Like, Michael Penix came out of nowhere and, oh, we found this guy. No, they drafted Michael Penix knowing that Kirk Cousins, they had just signed Kirk Cousins. So it's not a surprise at all that to this Atlanta Falcon team that the salary cap is where it's at. It's not a surprise to them. So the situation has changed 100%. The situation is different, but it shouldn't matter about, if they can't trade Kirk Cousins, he got a no trade clause. If you don't want to deal, he's on the roster as the backup. It's just that simple. Hughes is good enough. And our money is short. Yeah, they need to bring back Mike Hughes. I agree with that. I think he's a solid number 2. Right, I agree. If they can bring back Mike Hughes, let me go back and listen to my secondary talk that I did, and you look at the free agents that's there, and who Mike Hughes is a free agent, so they will have to bring him back. But they need to find a number 2 outside AJ Terrell. I agree with that. Curtis not retiring until he gets his money, and I agree with you that we're not going to cut him, and I see him being a backup because the money is, yeah, exactly. It's meant, man. That money is there. So suck it up, brother. You ain't going nowhere. If you don't want to get traded, pick a team. You can get with your agent, pick a team, and y'all come up with agreement, a team that will trade you to. But you're going to be a backup, bro. We can have one of the most expensive backups on the roster going to 2025, but that's okay. I see them restructure some players' contracts to help free up some money. They're gonna have to, man. They just gonna have to do that. Guys, wings and chill fries for the game. LOL. Like, yes, right, man. It's almost time, man. Let's see the Kansas City Chiefs can start their run for that 3-peat, man. First time in NFL history. See, can they do it? It's gonna be tough for the Texans to come in and beat those guys. So it's gonna be interesting to see. These games are gonna be exciting this weekend. I can't wait to see. I think all of them, a lot of them are gonna be some temperature issues, right? Kansas City is gonna be cold. Philly's gonna be cold. Buffalo is gonna be cold. So only two teams gonna be living life is the Lions and the Commanders, right? But those other 6 teams, woo, it's gonna be pretty cold out there. The element's gonna really be part of this weekend's divisional round playoffs. All right, let's get to the next candidate. That's Wink. Like I said, he would be right on top of my list. And then let's talk about Matt Eberflus. The Atlanta Falcons been reportedly that the Atlanta Falcons have interviewed Matt Eberflus, a recent guy that they just interviewed on Saturday. So today they interviewed him today. They just finished that. Now I want everybody to just forget about Matt Eberflus' tenure as a head coach, because if you look at that and you would be like, what in the world? Why would the Atlanta Falcons be talking to this guy, right? Because he was not a good head coach. It's just simple at that. And sometimes, guys just ain't their forte. They're not able to do those kind of things, right? Because you got to be able to lead the whole team, as a head coach. You got to be able to manage every situation. Of course, his situation was the quarterback. The Justin Fields of it all. The new quarterback that just got in, Caleb Williams, right? It just didn't pan out for Matt Eberflus. His situational football was not really good in the games, right? So he did not do well as a head coach. But if you look at what he did as a defensive coordinator, it was really impressive, right? from 2018 to 2021, he was a defensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts, and they had really good defenses, one of the best run defenses in the league during that time. Um, and they forced turnovers a lot. So that's what you like. You like that. And when you force turnovers, when I think about teams forcing turnovers, that means they are aggressive, right? You go back to the Bears defenses. His defense with the Bears was good as well. So when you're looking at a guy like Matt Eberflus, you're looking at Matt Eberflus as the defensive coordinator, not the head coach. And this is an intriguing interview by the Atlanta Falcons because it goes to show that they really is looking at everybody, really looking at everybody to come down to who they would like. So it's going to be interesting to see where the Atlanta Falcons end with their defensive coordinator at the end. It's a guy that they haven't interviewed, which was surprising. It was Dennis Allen. Everybody threw his name out there. It was a guy that the Atlanta Falcons could potentially interview, but his name has not been thrown out there. But if you look at the interviews that the Falcons had did so far, it's none that's the same, right? They all different. They all got their own different way they did their things, different resumes. You look at the two new guys and Brown and Ansley, two guys who've never been DCs. Bringing those guys in to get fresh minds as well. You look at the guys that been doing it a while, and Wilkes, Eberflus, and Winkdale. And then you look at Jeff Ulbrich, another guy, like I said, with the familiarity there with the head coach. So interesting to see who they bring in. Once again, I'm leaning towards the Steve Wilkes being the guy. Winkdale would be my second guy, I think. And then Matt Eberflus is really being intriguing. And then to round it off would be Lou Anarumo. So that's where I would be right now. Wilkes, because I think he might be the guy. So I'm leaning towards him. Winkdale, Eberflus, and then Lou. I didn't say Jeff Ulbrich. If they bring in Jeff Ulbrich, it's all good, man. I'm just like, okay, it's like we going back to Dan Quinn era. That's just what I'm looking at. And good luck, Raheem. So, but those will be my guys that I will look at and just see what the Atlanta Falcons is going to be able to bring. It's going to be interesting to see. Eberflus is a good DC and would be a good candidate too as our DC. Yes, so he's intriguing to me, and right now he's like third on my list. Right, it would be Wilkes, Winkdale, then Eberflus. That would be my choosing right now, and then Lou fourth, and then fifth, I guess it would be Ulbrich. That's of the guys they have interviewed. That's where I stand. All right. All right, guys, let's get into the defensive line right now, real quick. So we're talking about defensive line, and then first of all, like I always do, you gotta look at the defensive free agents, defensive line free agents that's out there for Atlanta Falcons, and it's not many, but we got Eddie Goldman. Of course, we know Eddie Goldman. I thought he played decent, being out for a couple of years, coming back. He finally stayed with the team the whole time. So Eddie Goldman is a free agent this year. Contavious Street is a free agent. Taquan Graham is a free agent, and then James Smith Williams is another free agent. So those are our free agents on the defensive front for the Atlanta Falcons. We'll leave guys like Ruke Rural, Brandon Dorless, David Umayata, Grady Jarrett, Damone Harris, I think, is still on the roster. They just gave Lakel London a futures contract as well. So that's where our defensive line stands right now for the Atlanta Falcons. Out of those free agents, it'll be interesting if they bring any of those guys back. I think with the additions they added last year in the draft in Rook and Brandon Dorless, I'm not sure if they bring any of those guys back. They might bring a guy like Eddie Goldman back because of his size and what he brings to the table. Taquan Graham is really interesting because he's a actually draft pick of the Terry Fontenot era so far. And did he live up to that fifth round pick? I'm not 100% sure. So it'll be interesting to see. But you got Zach Harrison here. You got Grady, you got David, you got Brendan, and you got Rook, right? That would probably be your rotation guys right now on the defensive front. But when we start talking about these free agents and why you might bring some of these guys back, because we just talked about the salary cap and how the Atlanta Falcons need to clear up salary cap space to be, competitive. They just have to, right? So you're looking at two contracts in particular where Atlanta Falcons can actually clear up cap space, and that would be contract of Grady Jarrett, who's on his last year contract. Now they can extend Grady, to try to lower his cap number, right? And they might just do that. I'm not 100% sure. Grady is not, the dominant force that he's been, but he was still really good this year. But I don't know if they want to bring him back at that cap number since he's in the last year contract. Now they can extend him. It'll be his fifth time extend, signing the contract Atlanta Falcons. And hey, it's about time to Grady give him a discount, man. That's a lot of money they don't gave a fifth round pick. And he's delivered it. Grady Jarrett is the definition of an Atlanta Falcon. So that would be a hard decision for them, to move on from Grady. But they'll be able to save a lot of cap space for that. And like I said, bringing in the young guys like a Rook, like a Brendan, they might be able to feel like they could, get cheaper guys, to fill those roles instead of paying Grady so much money. So that's definitely a decision they have to make. The other contract is David Amenyata. He's in his last year contract. I think if they release him, they say like $8 million. So between our two veteran defensive linemen that we got, the Atlanta Falcons got to make a decision on both of those guys. It'll be easier to cut ties with David, of course, than with Grady, because Grady, like I said, is the Atlanta Falcon. He's an Atlanta Falcon through and through. I couldn't even imagine Grady with another team. I don't think he can imagine himself with another team. So, and then you listen to his exit interview, the way he talked about that he's here, he want to ride it out with his team because he want to get it done. You just like that passion. You want that on your team. So it'll be interesting to see about Grady. But, we got to be able to see what Rook, can bring to the table. So he definitely to be able to get more playing time. And then Brandon Dorless did not get a lot of playing time at all. We want to be able to get him on the field as well. So, like I said, looking at those free agents, guys like Contavious Street, I don't think they would consider bringing him back, and maybe Taquan Graham either, because of you got to give these guys opportunity that you just drafted, opportunities to get on the field. Now, Rook had some flashes in his playing time that he got, so you can see the potential there from Rook or Aurora. But you want to see guys like Zach Harrison, have a step, going into this year 3, being able to be better as well. So you definitely want to see Zach Harrison get more playing time. And then, of course, our two rookies, Rook and Dorless, right? So we want to see all those guys shine. But Atlanta Falcons going to have some decisions to do with this defensive line, man. They really are. And once again, like I said, it goes down who's going to be the defensive coordinator. Now, if I was taking on defense, I would 100% say, hey, look, man, I want Grady part of this defense, right? So that's one of the decisions they got to make. And it's all about the cap and the money there. That's the only reason why I'm talking about Grady in this situation, because it's a no-brainer that he needs to be on this team. But, Atlanta Falcons have to make decisions because they have to improve the defense. They just have to. So they can either extend Grady or, cut him. I don't know what they're gonna do. Right? That's or they could just leave it pat. And if they leave it pat and think that they can make noise in this, in this NFC South, I don't think so. So they got to do some improvements, right? Only having picks, which I think all 4, maybe 5 draft picks, because I think they're gonna get a pick depending on the trade that we make with the quarterback to the Chargers. I can't think his name right now. You guys know what I'm talking about. But it's going to be a 6-7 round pick for him. So we probably have 5 draft picks, but even having 2 7-round picks is you're not going to find a whole lot of talent in the 7th round. So technically, the Atlanta Falcons got 3 picks that can be that could potentially be impact players for the Atlanta Falcons going into 2025 in the draft, right? So they got to make decisions, guys. It's going to happen. Um, Now they have guys that they definitely can extend, and we'll get more into the salary cap, during the off season and talking about guys that they can actually extend and restructure contracts and things like that. But from a defensive line standpoint, I think they got a solid solid core at the defensive line. Of course, they got the two old guys, David and Grady, but you brought in two nice rookies and Dorless and Ruko Roro. You want Zach Harrison to take the next step. So there you guys, defensive line right there. Do you bring any of the free agents back? Eddie Goldman, Taquan Graham, maybe. You just have to think about it and consider it. The Atlanta Falcons kept 8 defensive linemen this year. I don't know if they keep that much this year, this upcoming year. So it's going to be interesting to see what Atlanta Falcons do with the D line. But looking at the D line free agents that was out there, those who you have it, those 4, and you guys give me your opinion. Out of those 4 guys, Taquan Graham, Eddie Goldman, Contavious Street, Jay Smith Williams, which one would you bring back, or would you bring back either one of those guys? Let's go to some of the last couple of statements here. Wallace said, I think they will get a chance to interview Dennis Allen if he wants to be a football. He might be the last interview they do, if anything. I agree with you on that. Recondo, those are my top 3 in order. Interview Dennis Allen, he would be my 4th. So you're right. I think Dennis Allen might would jump Lou for me. So I agree with you on that. He probably would be my 4th as well, right? I think I still will put Eberflus over Allen. So I agree with you. Yep, good point. You say Terry is going to try to re-sign some players in house first. I could be wrong, but I think he will restructure Grady's contract so that he can retire as a Falcon if he decides to do it. Yes, I think Grady want to be a Falcon for life too. So I think they can come into a mutual agreement. I mean, think about it, man. They have gave Grady 3 contracts already. This will be his 4th one. So if he extends, man, I just think that, and now you don't want to do it if he's not playing well, but he still is really, really good. So it's not like it's a pity signing or extension or something like that. I think you're signing a good player still. Even though he's going to his 11th season, and he only been injured once, man. So you gotta like what you're seeing out of Grady, and I agree with you. I don't worry about the salary cap situation because good people in the staff that work out and keep us compliant with the league. Yeah, I mean we got a pretty good front office. I agree with you 100% with that. And like I said, they knew they was going to be in this situation. So now they didn't know they weren't going to make the playoffs, right? And they didn't know they was going to be, in a situation where they had to make so many improvements on this team, right? Because they thought some of these guys are going to actually, do the things they need to do. So I think that's the only difference between knowing where you was going to be going in 2025 as far as a salary cap standpoint and understanding how much you had to do to make this team more competitive. So those where I think it's not aligning up to the salary cap and the talent. That's what they need to fix, man. And that's what Terry said. It's not good enough. That's simply put, it's not good enough. Wilder said, I'm bringing back Street and Goldman. If you can get them for veteran minimums, I agree with you. Bring back both of those guys. That would, because you got to have the depth. So yes, I'm tracking on that. If you bring back both of those guys because of the depth on that front line, yes, bring back both of those guys. I hope we keep at least 6 or 7 D linemen. We had 8 this year. So it'll be interesting to see. I think it really boils down to what kind of defense we're going to run, guys. To be honest with you, and I think that's really what it boils down to. Wallace Smith, right? Goldman and Street deserve another season with us. There you go. To concur on the street and Goldman. Um, and I would bring back Smith Williams too on the 1 year deal. So you, it sounds like to me, Wallace, you say let's run it back with everybody. Um, well, I can tell you this much: um, they weren't good enough this year. So if you're coming back with everybody, it has to be something different. Something has to change then. It's just that simple. Because if you're running back everybody, and because they wasn't good enough, man. We wasn't good enough stopping the run, wasn't good enough getting back, right? So I think you got to mix it up. I think you got to mix it up, um, and that's why it's going to be interesting to see what they decide to do, right? I think the DC is going to really play a factor in this. But if you bringing back everybody, um, that defensive front was not good enough this year. And it could have been the scheme. It could have been the play calling with all that. I get it, right? That's why they fired the D-line coach as well. So it could be he just couldn't get the best out of those guys. But, running it back with all the guys that did not perform when we needed them to perform. In particular, man, those last two games, the most important games of the season for the Atlanta Falcons, defense did not show up. The last two games of the season, defense did not show up. And that's the reason why Atlanta Falcons did not make the playoffs, because the last two games of the season, when it was in our hands, right? The defense didn't show up, man. So I want to see some changes. I'm not saying that they should make wholesale changes, but bringing back the whole defense in the front that did not produce was it just, to me, it seems like you just going back to it. Maybe the defensive coaching was not good, and I could be wrong, right? Most maybe all these guys, you bring back this whole squad, and we have a 360 change in the defense. They all play 100% better. That's the case. Let's do it. But a lot of times it's not all the coaching. Sometimes it's on the players, and some of these players did not get it done this year. So let's see. I'm not going to bring back everybody, but those three I would. Right, but those three, but like it's only four. It's only four free agents. So you bring back those three, you pretty much keeping everybody else. So that's why I mean by that. You say Ricardo. I think we need a monster no tackle regard of the scheme. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think that depends on the scheme, because if you go 4-3, um, do you really need a monster no tackle? To take on double teams. Maybe still, because you want to free up for your linebackers. I'm tracking what you're saying, but 3-4, I think you do. I think 100% you need that big man in the middle if you're going 3-4, man, because you want somebody to take double teams and free your linebackers up to come downhill and make plays in the run game. But if you go 4-3, I think it's less of a need, because now they gonna have to double team Grady and stuff like that. So you said last two games of the season, the defense tackles. So yeah, the last two, it was pathetic, man. The game plan was pathetic. If you go look at the Carolina game, like they didn't even press, man. It was like we're gonna let you just throw the ball around, man. We're not gonna even put any pressure on you. And then they just didn't have a good game plan in the second half for Jaden Daniels. Thought the first half they played well, but in the second half they just did not play well. I mean, that entire third quarter, the offense had the ball three on three plays at all. That's it. Three plays in the entire third quarter in the Commanders game, and that's because our defense can get off the field. So those last two games is why the Atlanta Falcons look so much different, in the outlook on this team for next season, because of the last two games of the season, man. It's just be honest. The Atlanta Falcons win those last two games, win the playoffs. We have a whole different, outlook on what is the potential of this team. But the way the defense played those last two games, all right. I mean, that's the reason Jimmy Lake's fired. That's the reason, that's the reason Jay Rogers got fired, defensive line coach, right? That's the reason we're talking right now about the defensive coordinator search, because those last two games, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They played better on defense in those last two games. Um, this 2025 offseason talk would be totally different. It really would be. But it just didn't pan out, man. You know, and you can hear it in Raheem voice. And in the last game of the season, he was really disappointed how we played that last game, because you know we would have been over 500. Yes, we would have made the playoffs, but it would put a different um, vibe around the team. We had a better taste in our mouth for how the season went. Um, I mean, the Washington game, everybody wanted to talk about the time management piece, but the defense played like crap in the second half, man. They really did, and that's why we lost the game, in my opinion. Um, but guys, those are our the review on the defensive line. I think the biggest thing to take away from what I'm saying about the defensive line today is I think you're gonna have to give your rookies opportunities, right? They're going into year one and year two. You need to see those guys more. So I think they're gonna have to go younger on the defensive line. The point I'm making, because you have to give these guys opportunity. Right? You look at that young defensive line from the Los Angeles Rams. We're gonna get to look at those guys this weekend as well. But that young defensive line from the Los Angeles Rams, which Raheem had a lot to do with that. Look at guys like Kobe Turner and those guys, the way they was able to come on under Raheem in that his first season there, their first season there under him as the DC. So I think the Atlanta Falcons need to go younger on defensive line. They need to give Zach Harrison, Brandon Dorlus, Ruko Roro more opportunities to see what these guys' potential could be with this defense. That's why you're looking at the old heads, guys like Grady and David, and see how they fit into this team. I'm not saying that, you're going to go completely young. I think you need to mix those young guys in with the old two guys. That's the point I'm making. But, bringing back the everybody else, it wouldn't be good for the development of our young guys that we just drafted. So that's where I'm leaning at. So that's my point to end on the defensive line. I think that the Atlanta Falcons need to give Brandon Dorlus, Ruko more burn this year to see what they're able to bring to the table. A guy like Braden Trice is coming back. Zach Harrison is going to his third season. Of course, you still got Armor Ebiketie. So you got a young nucleus guys that you need to really get an idea of what they can bring to the table in the mixture with the old guys, man, and David and Grady. That's what they need to do. I think from a defensive standpoint, in his whole, the Atlanta Falcons look at the linebacker position. We already talked about nickel corner and a number 2 corner outside AJ Terrell. And then they need to figure out the strong safety position. I think we got our free safety in Jesse Bates, but they need to figure out the strong safety position. Could DeMarco Helen be that guy? I don't know. We have to find out. Can he be that guy? We don't know. Do they decide to bring Justin Simmons back? We don't know. Do they decide to bring Matthew Judon back? We don't know. So those are the things that we're going to find out here next couple of months. When they start getting close to the free agency, we know the Atlanta Falcons will look at their own free agency first, right? They got 23 of those guys. They got to get a idea, and I'm pretty sure right now, why the playoffs going. That's what they're looking at the whole roster and making a decision on those guys and see if they want to actually offer them to come back. So that's where it's at. But that's where I'm at with the defensive line. While I said yes, those last two games they missed out a lot of tackles, and they think the Panthers games they really got Jimmy Lake fired from us, giving up 44 points to Bryce Young playing like a MVP candidate. 100%, 100%. Right? The silver lining in those last two games were the Atlanta Falcons. If they would have got the ball first maybe we win both games, right? Both games went to overtime. Um, because of our young quarterback put him in overtime. Let's be honest about that. The reason they went overtime because our young quarterback that potentially could be the franchise guy, and the trajectory is going up like this the way he played those last 3 games. He put those guys in overtime, and if the coin toss go different, right? Atlanta Falcons get the ball, we score, maybe we won't even be having this conversation. In both games, right? Both games went overtime. Both games was lost because we didn't get the ball first. Maybe, right? So let's just throw that out. I think Simmons wants to come back. They will work out a deal with him. That would be great. Because I think Richie's gone. All right, so I hope Simmons come back as well. And I think the problem with Simmons, him and Bates, kind of the same guy. And I think Simmons like that free safety, and that's Bates. So they got to figure out the dynamic. Maybe Simmons playing more in the box. He's capable of doing that as well. But he as well. You go look at his numbers. We know he's a ball hawk, so we want to be able to have him in coverage. So bringing Simmons back, getting up a new DC, see how he'll be utilized. So you're right about that. But guys, let me know what you think about our DC search. I gave you my list. I'm going Wilkes. I'm going Winkdale. I'm going Eberflus. And for the guys they already interviewed, the fourth guy would be Lou Amorono, and then Jeff Ulbrich. That's my order, right? If they add any more guys like a Dennis Allen, he would still be behind those first 3 guys for me. But let's go ahead and get this done. We need to get our defense in. So a lot of other teams that's looking for DC defensive coordinators right now. You look at Indianapolis Colts, look at Jacksonville Jaguars, teams that need head coaches. Guess what? They're going to hire defensive coordinators as well. So Atlanta Falcons need to get ahead of the game and be able to try to get their candidate they want. Don't take second guys, secondary guys, because your guy, the guy that you wanted, you missed out on. So they need to go ahead and be the first one to go ahead and sign a DC. I like the idea of them taking their time and doing their due diligence, but at the same time, they need to go ahead and get the guy they want. You've seen what the 49ers are willing to do to Robert Saleh. They want to make him the highest paid defensive coordinator in the league, get him to come back to San Francisco, right? But we know he's trying to get him a head coaching job, so it's going to be interesting there. But with all the head coaching vacancies out there, it's really going to be interesting to see if the Atlanta Falcons get the guy they want. We'll never know because they'll say he was the guy I wanted all the time. We know that's what they'll say, but let's see. Let's hope they get the guy they want. Then, the last but not least, tell me, guys, what you think about our defensive line. Decisions that Atlanta Falcons got to make with the salary cap with David and Grady, the young talent that we got on the team. Do you think they could be the future? And Ruko Aurora, Brandon Dorless. Didn't see a lot out of Brandon Dorless, but we want to be able to see him. What you think about Zach Harrison jump from year 2 to year 3, right? Those the topics we need to think about. And then out of the 4 free agents, who should they bring back? So, guys, that's what I have. Jay Black said his list is Wilkes, Wink, Ulbrich. That's his order. I like your first 2, man. Let's make it happen. All right. Go, guys. That's all I have today. Thank you guys for tuning in today to Atlanta, the Real Falcon Fan. Go ahead and enjoy the division round playoffs. We'll definitely, highlight some of those games and talk about that. We'll go around the league again and talk about the other different coaching vacancies that's out there as well. But for us, the Atlanta Falcons, always going to be first on our mind about what the Atlanta Falcons need to do going into 2025. That's what we want to see. So there you have it. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is your boy Ricondo coming back at you with another video. Peace.